What if you stopped failing completely? Whether it was the money you wanted to make, or the health and the fitness you wanted to achieve, the weight you wanted to lose, what if the relationships that you wanted to have, the man or woman of your dreams, what if you got all of that and you knew you were going to get that and you didn't fail at any of this? What if this went on for so long that you got used to it? What if this became part of who you are and this is the only thing and the only way you showed up in life? All of this and more in today's video. What's up, boys and girls? My name's Yahya, founder and creator of Record Breaker, where I help people explode past their financial, health, relationship records by unleashing the power of their mind. And today, we have a fantastic video at how to stop failing or how to win every single time. I'm going to predicate this by telling you that all the things that you've tried and you failed are linked not to the things themselves, but they're linked to you. So let's start today's video with the saying, "Fear is the mind killer" by Frank Herbert from the novel Dune. Fear is the mind killer. Fear completely incapacitates the mind. It puts us in a very difficult fight or flight situation. Adrenaline and cortisol are released throughout our system, messing up our biology. Long-term memory shuts down. Cognition is impaired, like we're unable to think clearly. Critical thinking shuts down. Creative problem solving, the ability to solve problems creatively, completely goes out the window. All of this happens when we're in a fearful fight or flight state. Now, if this state goes on for too long, we become more and more risk averse because we're avoiding feeling fearful. We're avoiding what we think is going to be bad for us, what's going to hurt us. So we become chronically risk averse. We stop taking risks completely. If you're someone who's finding themselves in a stage of life, in a job, in a relationship where you know you can do better, where you know you're capable of more, but the fact that it scares you so much to break free of that relationship or that job has made you super risk averse, because the thought process is, what if I leave this to go do my own thing and I fail and I'll lose this and that won't work out? Risk aversion at its best. Now, when risk aversion becomes chronic, it leads to stagnation, which is where most people find themselves in their lives, whether it's their relationships or in their health, their fitness, or in the money they make. And this leads to chronic survival, where we're not living life, we're not growing, we're not thriving, we're not expansive, we're surviving. Now, if you're in a survival mode, you cannot win, because you're predicating and you're pre-assuming and you're priming your brain to think that the world is a dangerous and scary place and you need to protect yourself and you need to make sure you don't lose. So your focus is on aversion. So when you're making sure that you don't suffer and you don't lose, you cannot make sure that you do make more money, that you do get healthier, that you do get a partner who you think you deserve. You're either in survival or you're in thriving. So the way we live our lives is based on our risk appetite, which means how much risk are we willing to take? And more often than not, most people, the vast majority of people live their lives not based on what they want to do and what they'd like to achieve and all the wonderful things that they want to have, but more based on what they wouldn't want to have. An example of this, the way people take decisions, is that the one risk that is the worst becomes their decision-making criteria. So for example, if you're in a relationship and you think it is more risky to find someone else and it is less risky to stay with the person you probably hate or you can't stand, you will still stay with them. The only time a person makes a difference, a change, is when a trumping risk occurs. For example, you're a smoker and you had a heart attack, and now the risk of you dying is, it's clear and present and it's out there. So you're going to stop smoking because the biggest risk is for you to die. That's essentially how most people navigate their lives, watching out for bigger risks. So when risk-averse behavior and when this conditioning of fear and this state of survival occurs again and again and again, it then becomes part of your identity. Whatever risks we avoid, whatever things we stay with, whatever things we put up with, whatever standards we allow other people to treat us with, most importantly, whatever standards we treat ourselves with, all of this becomes part of our identity. Before we dive into identity, let me first share my identity with you. And let's go back 15 years ago, where I was gainfully employed in a 9-to-5 job. I had a whole bunch of chronic diseases. I had zero savings. I was living paycheck to paycheck. I was addicted to food. I was smoking. I was addicted to movies. I was overweight, pre-diabetic. I'd been in a car accident. I had massive inflammation in my body. I'd been told I'd never run again. Essentially, I'd been given all of these bad news and I'd internalized them, and they've become part of my identity. So guess what my risk appetite was? It was zero, because I was identifying as a complete, utter failure. Fast forward today, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've started 5 businesses and scaled them to 8, 7, and 6 figures within a year in the industries of technology, healthcare, self-help. I'm also the founder and CEO of a high-performance coaching program, which is the Record Breaker. I'm also the founder and CEO of UXIQ, which is an artificial intelligence, robotics, and machine learning company. That's right, I run 2 companies. I've coached entrepreneurs, other coaches, business owners, consultants, professionals, actors, athletes, CEOs, academia. I've consulted and I've disrupted big pharma, technology, healthcare. I'm also a keynote speaker at various events, and in my free time, I am a competitive powerlifter. Now, let's compare and contrast the 2 identities that I have. Which identity do you think has a bigger risk appetite? Which identity do you think expects to win? Now, I'm going to share with you 11 rules that you can use to transform your identity at an extremely accelerated rate. The first rule, boys and girls, is you have to respect yourself. A lot of people I meet go around in the world and they're upset because they're like, other people don't respect me. And then when I look at them, they don't respect themselves. They don't respect the food they consume. They don't respect their routine. They don't respect the way they talk about themselves. They don't respect the thoughts in their head. Do you say something long enough, frequently enough, you're going to believe it. So you better have some of the best self-talk in the world. Second rule, which is an offshoot of the first rule, is honor your commitments. Whatever you decide to do, whether you decide to start a side hustle, or you decide to ask someone out, or you decide on an exercise routine or a diet plan, stick to it. I work with a ton of people in Record Breaker. They all have life happening around them. But the fact is that they conduct themselves with enough honor and they stick to their commitments. And then irrespective of what life is throwing at them, they still go ahead and achieve the money targets as well as all the other targets in their life. So honor yourself, and treat your commitments like you mean it. Third rule, discipline. Stop relying on willpower. Stop relying on motivation. Use discipline instead. Right now, you have examples in your life of you using discipline. You are disciplined enough to show up in the morning and brush your teeth. You're disciplined enough to show up for the job. You might hate the job, but you show up for it. So every single person is executing and deploying discipline in their lives. All of these people who are like, I'm super disciplined when it comes to X, Y, and Z, but I just fail at that. No, that's a story they're telling themselves. Once you start using discipline, it doesn't take long for discipline to turn into a habit. Achievement becomes second nature. So conduct yourself and start deploying discipline. Next rule, get rid of all the codependencies you have. I like to refer to it as shiny object syndrome. So I was speaking to a friend earlier today who's starting his own consulting business, and he was hyper fixating about a structure. And he was like, how am I going to do things if I don't have a structure? How am I going to do this, that, and the other if I don't have a structure? Now, here's the thing. You need to start an inflow of cash. And as you go along, as you work with more and more people, as you develop your skills, you're going to have a structure, a brilliant, a fantastic structure. Don't waste your time, energy, and all of that thinking about something which is on the 57th step of your journey. Focus on the first step right now. Codependencies exist in your mind. I'm not good enough to do X, Y, and Z until I do A, B, and C. I'm not good enough to coach people unless I have the certification. All these stories that the brain tells you so that you need permission slips from the outside world, validation, accreditation. You do not need anything from anyone to do well in life. You're only telling yourself that. Next rule, think less. Actually, the next 2 rules are combined together. Think less, act more. Stop thinking in terms of what if, because what if is a risk-averse thinking philosophy. What if I lose? What if it doesn't go wrong? What if things don't work out? Life never goes as expected. There are no guarantees in life. I've worked in the corporate sector for close to a decade and a half. A lot of people think the corporate sector is safe. It's not. I was witness to downsizings every 2 or 3 years. And the downsizings, quite frankly, aren't based, as a lot of people think, on merit. Often they're just based on a job becoming defunct or obsolete and you're gone, irrespective of how good you were and how hard you were working. And I have something called the 4% rule, which means 1 hour out of your whole day, after 24 hours, dedicate 1 hour to doing whatever it is you want to achieve in life. Whether it's a business or exercising or diet or a relationship that you want to develop and want it to grow, doesn't matter. 4% of your time. Think less, act more. Next rule. Emotion. Come from a good emotional place. Most people's default emotion today is fear. If I don't do this, then this, and that's going to happen. Or people operate out of anger, ego. I'm going to show them who's right. I'm going to prove to these guys they're wrong. So then what do people do? They wait for motivation. Use courage. Next rule, intention. Act, talk, move, do like you mean it. This is very strongly related to honoring yourself. Intention is where it begins. A lot of times, a lot of people will do something half-heartedly. Lack of commitment, lack of honoring themselves, lack of following through, confirmation bias. Whatever we think, however we think, whatever we expect from the world is what we get back. So if you expect to fail, you're going to fail. If you expect people to betray you, they're going to betray you. Act with intention. The next rule, action. Now, I need to explain here the difference between activity, which most of the world seems to be doing, and affirmative action. What is activity? Activity is doing for the sake of doing. Mindlessly scrolling social media, doing things that are zero value addition to you in your life. Affirmative action is doing only 20% of things that move the needle forward in your life. I practice this every single day in every single thing I do. I get my clients to practice this across industries, boards, whatever they're doing. You answer only 20% of emails. You respond to only 20% of text messages. You focus on only 20% of the work that gives you 80% of your result. It's simple, but it's not easy. So people will be like, all right, let me go do the laundry and then I'll get around to this. Let me clear up my inbox, then I'll get around. No, you don't have to clear up. You can be okay with your inbox being full. Doesn't matter. Do the one thing that matters and do it first. And if you've done it enough times, you will start identifying as a man or woman of action. Next rule. This is important. Love yourself, but do it respectfully. Most people resign themselves. I'm going to be like this for the rest of my life because I have genetics. These are my genetics. I'm going to be the rest of my life like this because I'm like my dad or my mom. Acceptance is knowing who you are and still doing something about it. So for me, when I lost the weight, I accepted. I had to accept. I was giving myself excuses as well. I'd always been overweight. I was telling myself the same thing. I'm probably just, it's my genes, I'm gonna live with it. It's my metabolism, X, Y, and Z. I studied it, I fixed it. So acceptance is loving yourself, respecting yourself, and improving all the things you want to improve. Resignation is giving up completely and being like, all right, this is gonna be me for the rest of my life. And if you've stuck around till now, to the end of the video, the final and the bonus rule is we all have a baby inside of us. We have the baby who's always telling us to do the things that are easy to do and that don't require a lot of difficulties, things related to the senses. So eating, sleeping, enjoying visually stimulating things, so on and so forth. Kill the baby. The baby is the one who's telling you to eat ice cream and pizza at 3 o'clock at night. The baby is the one who's telling you, don't work on the business, it's too hard, making offers, showing up for meetings, showing up for calls with people. They're just going to say, no, forget about that. Let's be in this comfortable place. The baby is the one who's telling you, oh, I don't feel like working out today because it hurts too much. And squatting is just not my thing. That's the baby. That's the baby. The baby has been making excuses your whole life for you to not do things. It's about time you took control. It's about time you came back in charge. Boys and girls, these are my 11 rules, and if you adopt these, you can forget about failing for the rest of your life. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.